Guys, we are live. We got Dario Nardi with us again, the author of the Neuroscience of Personality. Dario is known for his EEG data on personality. Highly recommend you pick up his books, Neuroscience of Personality, The Magic Diamond, Decode Your Personality. I think he's got more. He's got some with Linda Behrens, co-author with Linda Behrens, and he does have some other like story type books as well. He does have a Udemy course. If you go to udemy.com, they have a lot of like courses where they can take you from like intro level to advanced level, and Dario does have type on that. So you can do that. They're actually pretty affordable, pretty cheap, especially as much as people spend on type related stuff for like trash. So I'm just being honest, man. You know I'm not lying. So you could do that there. But today we're going to be talking about neurosis and MBTI. I don't know exactly where we're going to go with this. Dario has PowerPoints. He's going to take me and Thomas on a ride here. Me and Thomas are in SE land. Cause
Yeah.
we, so anything you want to say, Dario?
No, just thank you for having me. And who doesn't want to talk about neurosis?
Yeah, yeah. So you guys do understand that like when we talk about things, we kind of take things from like a basic level to a more advanced level. So you want to make sure you watch the beginning because we're gonna build it up, progression mindset, obviously. But I guess we'll pull it up on the screen here.
That's right.
Let's go. What? Not me. All right, Daria, you're up. Personality in the neurotic zone.
Yeah, absolutely. So we all have heard this phrase before, and I realize some of you are like, you want to see exactly what this says here, so I will make it bigger so everyone will be happy that way. There we go. What is neuroticism? So the common meaning is emotional reactivity. The person gets anxious, they're moody. It's something that can be measured. The idea is the person's sort of emotionally unstable, or like when stress comes, they quickly react. And the idea is like you give them therapy, you give them some drugs, whatever it is. And the idea is like sort of everybody has more or less the same pool of symptoms. But Jung took a very different view. He used the word neurosis also pretty broadly, but in a different way. And he defined it as a tension between the ego and the unconscious. And when there's an imbalance between what we have, what we hold in our minds as us, what we're focusing on, who we are, and then there's all this other stuff which is unconscious or rejected, it's pushed out of awareness. When there's too much of a distance between that, that there's this tension, this energy that arises, and that is it. There's a whole bunch of different symptoms. Those symptoms tend to be type specific, and the treatment is not just talking to the person, although Jung did that too, or drugs, and he was a psychiatrist also. But the idea was to evoke material that is in the unconscious, that underlies, is underneath the symptoms. So let's get underneath the symptoms and then integrate those. Let's deal with what's going on there.
I just laughed at the comment. He said, "Y'all going too fast." Yeah. So basically, what Dario is saying here is essentially Freud and Jung think that there's some unbalance in the unconscious. Okay. I think Jung talks about it being one-sided. If you guys are aware on this channel, you don't want to be one-sided. It causes like a lot of your shadow functions to erupt in different ways, right, Dario? The one-sidedness, you'll see it with a lot of times. My personal opinion on it is like there's so many different ways you could be neurotic, especially with type, and it like generally tends to be with the shadow functions because like with the fifth function, there's paranoia that's attached to it. With the sixth function, it's like very angry and anal about everything. And then you got the seventh function, the trickster or whatnot, or kind of a lot of times the people are unaware, and then you have the demon, the last one. So I think like all of them synapses together can get you in it. For me, I see a lot of people being anal about the critic a lot. Like you can literally poke that thing in a person and you'll see it come out. Like if you're around an INTJ, just start saying stupid shit and they will go crazy. So I think there's a lot there. But Thomas, anything?
No, not right now.
Yeah, yeah. I think to give a simple example for folks, let's say somebody who's meaningful to you suddenly dies, and some people will be like, "Nah, I'm okay. Everything is good." And if they have some bad feelings, they're just going to be, "You know what? I'm just going to focus on throwing myself into my work and not think about it." That's a recipe for problems that there are all these emotions underneath the surface. You lost somebody who's important to you, and those emotions need to come out in some way. And the person might become irritable. Instead of showing that they're depressed, instead they're going to be snappy at the people around them. They might get, as you mentioned, like a little bit paranoid. Like there's all different symptoms people could have. So when we repress stuff, it is going to come out in some way, and so that's like a really great example of how Jung thought about it as something that is like a pressure cooker. It's like dynamic.
And
Yeah.
Dario, do you think there's like different things that a person should do to deal with neuroticism, or do you think there's a systematic approach that people can apply to neuroticism? Because I've heard, people, if they can deal with bring more conscientiousness into their life, the neuroticism tends to drop a little bit.
Mhm.
But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that one of the most important things is for the person to become aware of it. That doesn't even mean that they need to know how to deal with it, but at least to become aware of it is the very first thing. To say, "Oh yeah, I'm irritable," and even to be able to say, to give context to it. I've had a difficult last few months. Sorry, I've been irritable. Even if the person isn't dealing with it yet, just to go there is a very nice act for all of the people around you, because we might even think, oh, for introverts, like they're just suffering quietly on their own, but really it always is spilling out into other people. The next step besides awareness is, yeah, to do something about it. And ideally you want to get that material, that negative material, that imbalance energetically, like you want to bring it out in some way. Some people find that exercise is really good. Like just physically exercising helps get out some of the energy. Some people find creativity is a really great expression. I'm feeling angry. Let me paint that, or sing that. Some people it comes out in competitiveness. Yeah, they go out on the field and wow, they are extra competitive today. And that's a way to deal with it. So people are going to weaponize it. They're going to make it creative. I would say some people try to rationalize it or like intellectualize. And, that's better than nothing, to at least be able to talk about it. But ideally, the person is going to find a space where they can be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more chill, and talk to somebody. Well, there are limits to talk therapy. We know from 100 years ago, after World War I, that talk therapy helped people a lot. Not on and on and on, but just to be able to say something without the pressure. It's like going to talk to a bartender. It's like it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be your friend. In fact, a stranger might even be a very good idea, because then there's no like relationship that you need to manage. So I would say that that's a second sort of nice step. And then the third step is something more like what Jung would say, let's do a practice like active imagination that is going to bring out some images, some material that you can start to work with in your life. And it's going to seem weird at first, and it's like looking at your dreams or whatever it is. I think, though, that's a bridge too far for a lot of people, and that's the benefit of personality type, is that really we can wedge in a step there to say, okay, if you're this type, keep in mind, like you have your favorite, like heroic favorite preferred functions, and then you got some that are sort of in the borderland, like third, fourth, sixth, whatever it is, and to recognize those symptoms and to work with one of those functions. And that's the great thing about type, is then there's lots of material that says like, here's things you can do to work with your third function. whatever that is for you. And then it isn't as abstract or as weird maybe as something like active imagination, but it's more than just going for a run. It's a nice middle ground. There are some body mind, well, psychedelics actually is a great example. So in the US, ketamine treatment is completely legal. You go to a psychiatrist, they give you ketamine 20 to 30 minutes, it completely chills out all of your defenses, and then you have a therapy session for 20 or 30 minutes. And all of a sudden you can talk about stuff and not get your nervous system all reacting to it. The neuroticism goes away, and there's just the thing you need to talk about, and you feel chill about it. And that is really helpful to people. And then they go home and they're like, "Wow, I feel so much better," and all that took was an hour. So that's an option too.
Yeah, and have you seen anything that you would see in EEGs based on neuroticism or anything? Is there any?
In terms of neuroticism, well, yes. So there's different brain waves like delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. There's a sort of a gamma, not really gamma, high beta waves. These are brain waves, particular kind of brain wave that is associated with anxiety, with tunnel vision, with the scattered mind. Because when people are really under stress, some people get very scattered. Some people like double down and they get tunnel vision. So we can see that in the EEG. There is like a measure of stress in the psyche, and people may be unaware of that stress. And if you don't have an EEG, that's fine. You can do something like breath holding. You do 10 slow, deep in and out breaths, then you empty your lungs, hold your breath. How long can you hold it for? If you're actually chill, you can hold it for a minute or two. If you're not actually chill, you can do 20 or 30 seconds and then your whole nervous system is panicking. And that's like it's like a little like at-home trick to measure what is the real state of your nervous system, not what you think it is or what you'd like it to be. Because that's like something very concrete. Like how long can you hold your breath?
Yeah, for me, I can always, now that you mention that, I can tell when I'm getting neurotic because like I double down on everything. Like I'm a double down,
Mm.
triple down. And my friends used to like they have a running joke where they always know when they call it Emperor Mercer when he comes out because it's like when I'm in that state, it's like whatever I say is law, and I'm not going against anything else. Like, and if anything
Mm.
else goes against it, like it's not happening until like I've got kind of everything back in order, and like the chaos is down. Then I can go back to like a happy version or more jolly version. But like under like chronic stress, like I get
Mm.
like extremely micromanaging. Like everything needs to go exactly how I say it, and if not, like we got a problem.
No, I mean that's very true. It's the executive part of the brain saying, 'cause you really we have like several layers in the brain, and the midbrain, the limbic system, is very emotional and it has very strong reactions, and those are things which are not because of you went to school or whatever it is. Those are things that you're born with and that are formed in the first couple of years of your life. And then there's the outer layer of the brain, the educated part. And when those two conflict, when the limbic system is really outraged by something or very protective about something or whatever it is, and then the outer layer of the brain is like, no, you should react a different way. And you have these two parts of the brain hitting against each other. And the natural reaction is for the new neocortex, the outer layer, to try and double down with that executive function and just make the brain do what it's supposed to do. And that in the long run doesn't work because the limbic system will always win. Like the limbic system is what connects your whole nervous system. If the limbic system doesn't like something or it really wants something, is going to find a way to act out. And that so we can double down and that can help, but ultimately, We also need to know ourselves and like not put ourselves in situations or have beliefs or expectations that like set up a conflict within ourselves.
Yeah, I think yeah that's one of the biggest problems is the expectations. When you have a clear expectations for how you want things to go, that can be a
Hmm.
gateway right into it. But do you think that there are certain types that tend to be more neurotic than others, and why do you think that is?
Um, there are certain types that would like to think or that report they're more neurotic than others. But when we really look at the habits that are type specific, I think we just end up with definitions like NJ types, especially like NFJs, can have difficulty sleeping and they're like ruminating and thinking a lot about stuff. And they're very sensitive to the energy of the people and the vibe around them. And they get nervous about things and they're thinking ahead to the future. And that's like a stereotype of neuroticism. But take a very different type like ESTJ. ESTJ can also be neurotic, just in a very different way. One way is ESTJ can get very biting, nasty humor. Like they're going to extrovert their difficulty, their neuroticism is like really nasty jokes, bullying. These other, I mean, we're going to talk about this, like how it comes out. This like belittling of things which are new or different or weird, and just and that's not what we think of when we think of neuroticism. But when the person's doing it habitually and it's unpleasant to other people, and ourselves, then that is, Jung would say, those are neurotic symptoms. So there's now within a type, I wouldn't say, any type has like a corner on it, but obviously there are some individuals who are more or less neurotic than others. It's like how well do you have your internal issues processed? How well do you know how to process them? Like that, I mean, some people just their life history, like they're carrying a lot more stuff. Some people physiology, their nervous system is just more sensitive. Um, so it's going to vary on the person. Some people learn how to handle their feelings, their emotions, their difficulties. Other people don't learn how to handle them. They just act out with violence or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. I think it could kind of push into what we did last week, the attachment styles. I think there may be certain attachment
Yeah.
styles that experience more neuroticism than others. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can push us forward, Dario.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to say there, and I'm not going to go over these. I'm just going to show people that these exist. So Jung talked about, there are lots and lots of quotes about neuroticism and each of the 8 functions, the Jungian functions that are behind type. So what does extroverted sensing look like when it's neurotic? What does extroverted intuiting look like when it's neurotic? And there are these, he talks about there's a lot of symptoms with it. So with like extroverted intuiting neuroticism, the person all of a sudden is, they're going to sort of claim their extroverted intuition wants to be free and exempt from all restraint and anything is possible. But because they're not paying attention to what's underneath, the fact that some things in life really are fixed, that they have to do things like pay the bills, have a job, support their family, that they need to pick a major in school, whatever it is, that they end up with these neurotic compulsions. It could be negative reasoning. It could be what he described, for example, is like hypochondria, phobias, absurd bodily sensations, worrying all the time, very, very sensitive to the environment. And this is introverted sensing. So it's like their opposite of their dominant function, their inferior function. And if folks want to know more about this and all of these quotes, I mean, Jung has a ton of these, then they can go look at the Magic Diamond, where there's like, I don't know, something like 200 quotes from Jung.
Yeah, there
And
you go.
that's the Jungian version. But I'm going to talk about it in a little bit broader way that is more than just the first and fourth, like heroic and inferior function. Yeah. And that's what I call the neurotic zone, this boundary between the ego and the unconscious. And the ego is where this is my identity. I'm doing things intentionally. I know what I'm doing. I'm in control. And then the unconscious is all the stuff that's like, it's the ocean. It's the wild forest. Like, we don't know what's in there. It's not tamed. It's not fenced. It's bestial instincts. It's whatever it is. But there's always like this boundary in between. It's like when you go to the beach. The beach is the boundary between the ocean and the land. When you see a farm and you go to the edge of the farm, and I can say this actually from experience. I remember this time I'm like walking through Sweden, and there's these farms here, and there's also woods. And I noticed that the most ecologically diverse areas are these several yards that sit between the fields, the cultivated fields, which are very orderly and intentional, and then the wild wilderness. The forest itself is not super ecologically diverse. It's actually most diverse as that boundary. And so that's what the neurotic zone is. It's like when these different parts of our personality, ego and unconscious, wherever they overlap, that's the richest part of the personality, but it's also the most problematic for us, and causes us a whole bunch of grief, but it's also a place that we can grow from. And so it's material that we're sort of aware it's there. We're like half aware that it's there. Other people are half aware that it's there. It's a source of conflict, it's symptoms, but it's also a source of creativity and growth.
Yeah.
And then we can say, okay, well, then what goes in here and what goes in this neurotic zone for young adults, I would say like age, like 15 to 45, that that's a lot of third function stuff and a little bit of fourth function. I think when we're younger, the stuff that's our inferior function, we just avoid it. Oh no, that's like too physical for me, or it's too intellectual or it's too emotional or whatever it is. And so it's more like third function kind of stuff. As we get older, it tends to be like other functions come in, shadow functions come in more, they're more obvious. And that's so it's like a catch-all zone, and it's not like just tied to one function. But I think for a lot of people, it's the most obvious thing is the third and some of the fourth function,
Yeah.
and then the shadow functions are also like swimming around it.
Yeah. What I've noticed from like me and Thomas have typed a lot of people. A lot of times, people are more aware of their child function than their inferior function, and they will generally think their child function is their inferior function quite a lot. It happens quite a lot. I don't know why it is that it does that. My theory on that is that they're pulling too much on one lever because if you pull too much on the parent, then your child is kind of like not developed at all, and then you're gonna have micro expressions of something like an inferior, but you're more aware of it because it's the child function is more there, as
Mhm.
opposed to the inferior. It almost seems like because the hero function is kind of almost always on. It's like a TV
Mhm.
that they don't even notice the inferior function. So you'll see a lot of people think they're a type that is actually the opposite. I'm not the opposite, but like the letters are different. Like you'll see INTJ who thinks they're an ENTJ, or an INTP who thinks you're ENTP, or an ENTP who thinks stuff, or INTP stuff like that.
Hmm.
You'll see quite a bit, and I think it's because of that. I mean, we're in that age group that you were talking about, like that 15 to 44.
Yeah.
Well,
And
the
that's
child.
I agree. And as Jung would point out, also the stuff that's the fourth function or inferior, we tend to project outward onto the world, either to put something on a pedestal. And we talked about this last time. Like for my type, extroverted sensing is my inferior. And so I either put it on a pedestal, something like extreme sports or whatever it is. It's like, oh, that's so awesome. Or like musicians, that kind of thing. Or it's the opposite, is like I'm going to demonize it and say it's the stupidest thing in the world, and right,
Reckless.
and it doesn't involve me, because like you said, the dominant function is already like, nah, I got everything covered. But what is in the person's awareness in day-to-day life is their child function, their third function, and we're aware that that's like a problem. Not every day, all the time, but we do tend to think, okay, that's what I need to work on. And that's fair enough when you're younger, absolutely. It's I would say don't stress out about your fourth inferior function until you get to midlife. Just be aware that then you do have to deal with it, but don't like stress out about it because it's just too big. It's too much to handle. And I think that the third function, the child function stuff that erupts, it's the neurotic stuff, is pretty easy to identify. And then that can be very helpful for us to see. Yeah, okay. In fact, I think this is a great way to sort for type. Like this is to ask somebody what's in your neurotic zone. And there are some types like say INFJ and INFP. And people often is like, oh, my INFJ or my INFP. And I'm like, well, your neurotic zone looks totally different for those two types. So read these descriptions because obviously reading about, the two main ones, the preferences didn't help, but you're going to see these neurotic zones are like completely different because their third function, their child function, completely different.
SI child versus TI.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. INFJs can drive me up the wall with a TI child. They can drive me up the wall, man. It's like
Well,
they.
we can start with them if you want to. So it's
Yep. Yeah, maybe that's a good segue.
Yeah, that's a good. Like for me, when I'm dealing with an INFJ, it's almost like I'm dealing with a MacBook 1998. That's the running joke. I've said it. It's like MacBook 1998 because it takes them so long to process information. That usually they come and hit me back like 3 or 4 or 5 days later on the same information
Mm,
that I gave them. Also because they also got to translate all the information into their own thinking, right? They don't really download process information through TE. They process it through TI, so they got to pull all of that through TI, and it takes them quite a bit of time. Especially if you go like super complex with a lot of stuff that they've never heard from. And that's one of the things that I've noticed from NTs is NTs can download it quick. They can literally talk to you in real time and converse back to you on something that you give them. With an
mm.
INFJ, not so much. Probably only 5 days later. But also they take these kid models to everything. Like it's like they take this yin yang, and I'm like, yo, things are way more nuanced than yin
Yeah.
yang, buddy. Like it's not just 1, 2, buddy. It's like 8, 9, 10 different variables, and you trying to crunch them into this 1, 2 thing, and it drives me insane. Or like, their understanding of things are just so superficial that it drives
It's
me insane.
they lack nuance.
But yeah.
Yeah, there's a few number of categories, but then the discussion around the categories is then they can write, an entire book around the bourgeois and the proletariat. And that's the very simple model. But let's discuss it, and then we're going to do INTJ, just because turnabout is fair play. Um, so yeah, so here are some things which I have observed with ISFJ and INFJ, which have the same child function, is that they can get hypercritical, yet are also personally quite sensitive, even to small slights. So it's like at the same time they can dish it, but they don't want to take it. And especially when they're younger. When they're older, they're more like, I'm being critical and I'm okay with that. Then they tend to get stuck in analysis paralysis. As you said, like something comes in, idea, information, and they're like, oh no, this doesn't fit in my pre-existing categories. Like, how am I going to make this fit? Oh no, I have to rework my whole philosophy or rework the data or see it in a different angle or whatever it is, which can keep them up, through the whole night, and it might take years. Constantly grapple with vague, big ideas without getting clarity. So unlike, uh, somebody like ENTP or ISTP, who's gonna not spend years doing this. They've already like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about this since I was a kid, even. And here's this new thing. Like, I think we could explore it this way. Because in many cases, like the types that are comfortable with, they're not neurotic about it, they're comfortable with it, are going to have tools for using tools. and they know which tools are right for the job. Whereas ISFJ, INFJ, especially when they're younger, they're grappling. They don't even know which tools are the right ones for what's in front of them. As you said, prefer simple models, mental models, except usually one specialty area that they endlessly tweak and elaborate. Whole bunch of wordsmithing, whole bunch of elaboration, and like this tiny little specialty. Uh,
I think
and that's
they're
what makes them academics. I've met INFJs and ISFJs in academia who are just so proud of their like micro specialty and very good at like they have a lot of information about it. But you present something that's like one step outside of that,
Woo, 5 days
and
later.
yeah, and then it's like the smoke is coming out of their ears. And by the way, I can talk about every single type this way, including my own. So just in case folks are thinking I'm paying it, I'm paying extra attention to these folks.
No, Dario, we're
Um,
brutal. We're brutal on this channel. Like we're brutal
yeah,
on all the
yeah.
types. Like we have tier lists and we're brutal on all of them. Like when I'm telling you, we attack all of them bad. Like you're gonna hear it. But yeah,
So here, this one isn't a good example. This next one. So there's a typo on the slide here, and ISFJ in particular is going to be like, "Oh my God, there's a typo." Um, so I would be like, chill out. It's okay, if there's a typo. Overemphasize social signaling. The social signals by themselves that are coming in are extroverted feeling, but the question is, what do they mean? Like, what do they really mean? How do I categorize them and respond to them properly? And then they can get very involved in thinking like, what could it mean? Um, Strongly favor, and I think this is important to understand, when we're neurotic, we can have an either or extreme. So they can strongly favor or reject intellectual or cultural elitism. So some ISFJs, INFJs, they immediately want to know, where did you go to school? What are your credentials? Who did you study under? What neighborhood do you live in? All of these things, because they have a mental model that is informed in part by social status, and also these things like a piece of paper telling them, oh, well, you have this credential, you have a PhD in whatever it is. So you must be very smart. And they're going to hold that tightly because they feel insecure about their child function. The child is like, see, I got an A on my paper. The teacher gave me an A, so it must be right. And whereas an NT type is going to be like, I mean, that's nice, that's a data point, but the teacher could be wrong too. Um, it would be like whatever. And sometimes there are some folks, INFJ and ISFJ, that actually reject elitism, and they're going to be more like hippie-ish and bohemian, and I don't care what nobody says. Those are less common, but they show up too. Um, Easily define, and I think this is a really good example, something that which we don't notice at first, but easily define a personal or local experience, like what happened to them yesterday at the market, as part of some global or grand drama. And this is in part because the extroverted feeling event happened. There was some social interaction at the market. Then it goes to their mental model. The mental model is sort of simplistic and is a really big black or white model. And clearly it must apply to the whole world, right? Even if they've never ventured outside of their home state. And then all of a sudden the discussion becomes some big philosophical conversation or issue. And it's like, no, the person at the market was just a moron and they were rude to you. Like it's not part of some like grand drama. It could be, by the way, but I'm just saying, like, it's the emotional investment that they put in it. Um, and then I think this is something that they tend to be aware of, which is really tough for them, is that there's a strong inner outer split, because there's the warmth of their natural self, and then there's the child function, which is cold and impersonal. So they can actually feel very warm on the outside and friendly and cold on the inside, or vice versa. So they could go to a party and then hear feedback later that they were very cold and aloof. And they're like, "What are you talking about? Like, I had a great time. I thought I was very warm." Because their inner experience, the outer experience, like these two functions, what they prefer in their child are so different. It's like, I mean, for our type, like INTJ, it's like, and my mother would say this when I was like 15 or 20. She's like, Dario, sometimes, you can be, like, many times you're like you're 50 years old, and then other times it's like you're five. And,
That's
but you
my
know what?
child.
We all have that. And I'm like, Mom, you're the same way, just in different things. And she was ENFJ, not INFJ. And INFJ and the ISFJ, all the FJs can show some of these. But again, I'm focusing more on like that age, like 15 to midlife.
Yeah, yeah. What
Yeah.
what I've noticed also about this these two more the INFJ, I don't really deal with a lot of ISFJs, is they have a problem with understanding when someone's like knows more information than them about something. It's like they almost see everybody on the same level as them. So like they'll be telling you something that you clearly know 10 times over what they're talking about. But they'll be telling to you like it's something like it's the new fucking thing on the block. And I'm just like this is ridiculous. But I've noticed that with the T trickster where they can't really adjust to like, okay, I know this person knows more information about me and said topic. It's almost like we're on the same level.
Hmm.
And don't you dare, and they kind of treat you that way, and then they're kind of shocked when you're like, yo, man, like we're not on the same level. I'm sorry. I'm
Hmm.
sorry.
But I think with INFJ, they have more direct communication, sort of in the Linda Barron's model. Uh, And so it's more obvious what you're talking about with ISFJ because they have an informing communication style. It's more passive aggressive. So it's like if you if you disagree with them, especially socially, then like in front of other people, then that's embarrassing to them. And then they're going to do things behind your back to sabotage you socially because you like shamed their model. And because our inner child or like the child function doesn't want to be shamed, it doesn't want to be corrected. And this is so it's just different function for everybody. But I think, yeah, there's some differences between the two types, and that's one of them.
Yeah,
INFJ more obvious pushback, ISFJ more passive aggressive.
yeah. What I've noticed though, Dario, with the child function is people tend to double down. Like
Oh yeah,
if you
yeah.
challenge the child, they're doubling down on it. Like if you challenge your INTJ on the FI child, like they're gonna double down on it. Like they may get even worse with it. Okay, so that's
Oh
just
yeah, because if I see somebody's being a hypocrite and then they deny it, they're being even more of a hypocrite. Like that's 10 times worse. Like if you're being a hypocrite and you're going to come out and say like, "Oh yeah, I'm just doing it for self-advantage." At least you're being honest about it. But if the other person denies it, yeah, my FI is just my child function is just going to double down and be like, "No, you're even worse. Like that's just evil now."
yeah, yeah. It's yeah.
Yeah. So we have a question here about and how does it manifest in academic environment? I saw this a lot, especially when I taught in social science. There were several INFJ faculty. They feel like a special camaraderie with the INTPs because they both have introverted thinking. The INFJ is very proud that they are teaching at a top university, so that must mean that they are, they're the cat's meow, and that their knowledge is very special and important and something to share with the world. And if you disagree, yeah, you're going to hear about it. And if it's a model even like they don't know about, is very. I do remember there was a moment, and this other faculty member who was maybe a little bit older than me at the time, but in a different branch of anthropology, and she saw I was like working on some stuff with temperament, and she's like, "Oh, I've never heard of it." I'm like, "Well, it goes back 2,500 years, but there's a lot of research from the 1920s onward." And she was very, even though she knew and said she knew nothing about it, she was extremely dismissive because it's like, "Oh, well, it's not something I learned about." My mentors didn't teach that to me, so it must not be that important or legitimate. And that's a way that it can show up, as well as the models that are very values driven. And I'm not necessarily saying those are bad. Like democracies and republics don't work very well when you don't have a virtuous people. So values are important. Good conduct, civilized conduct, being civil is important. And that's the rub of it. Like the child function has a lot to offer, but it often shows up in these really sort of childish ways.
Yeah.
And that's yeah.
Yeah, I know they really get the difference I've noticed with NTs versus like NFs in general is NT might be upset about you giving them the truth, but they'll come around to it. An NF, if you give them the truth, they're probably excommunicating you from their life. When it comes to like data or anything like that, or like them being wrong or anything like that, like an NT, they'll be like, I'm wrong, and they'll adjust. But the NFs, you
Well,
probably never seeing them again.
Yeah, I can think of an ENFP in particular. He's in his mid 20s, and he just imagines like when he's using his child function, which is extroverted thinking, so it's about empiricism and data and so on, that he's just doing like a slam dunk in basketball, and wow, I showed them and I put them in their place, and I'm like, yeah, actually, your analysis is wrong. Um,
well,
like
shocker.
yeah, shocker. And I'm just
Yeah,
like, but
trickster.
it's crushing because it was such a wonderful experience for them. And it's the same, like if I go and play music, and sometimes I'm on my game with music, and sometimes I'm not. And if I'm not, you know what? I sort of know that, but I don't want anybody to tell me that because that's just like, I don't need that feedback, thank you. I sort of know it, but it just feels bad. And who wants to like what our inner 10-year-old doesn't want to feel bad. And so there's yeah, and it's tough. So we have to remember when we're dealing with somebody who's a lot of their neurotic zone material to not just like get nasty back with them, but treat them as if it's their inner 10-year-old speaking. And then how do you deal with the 10-year-old? So it's just some of it is just accepting, like, I don't expect a 10-year-old to know how to drive. Like, I literally don't. I don't expect them to hold a job. So why should I expect them to be able to do what my heroic function does really well? And that doesn't mean I'm going to take what they're doing seriously. Because, 10-year-olds come up with a whole bunch of ideas, and their parents are like, uh huh, now let me move your attention to something else. I mean that's a great way to I think it's a great way to think about it. Is this person is their inner 10-year-old is coming out. So it's a bit self-aggrandizing and let's just finesse it.
Yeah, I just noticed that, like, I've been kind of like playing with this idea in my head lately that, like, because I've kind of seen a pattern, especially with like INTJs, is like when they're kids, they can be assholes. And like as they age, they start to look at and evaluate their morals and stuff. And then later in their life, they're a little bit more ashamed of how they treated people. Like I could see that in my mom. Like she was like a fucking general when we were kids, and now she's like the nicest lady. Like she would curse us out. Like we were like 8, 7 years old. She cursed us out like because she get mad. She's a single mom, but like she get mad. INTJ like can't really deal with all that chaos, and she got all these kids, and like we're menaces, and like so she would cuss us out, and like we picked up cursing very early. And like now that she's older and like I'll be around her and I'll start cursing, she's like, stop all that cursing. And I was like, now I was just thinking about it, like maybe that FI is grown up, and it's ready to be stronger and it has more values and stuff like that.
Hmm.
You'll see it like with like a lot of like INTJs that were like harder on people, like a lot of INTJ coaches, like in the like football and stuff or soccer or
Hmm.
whatever, they'll treat people a certain way, and then later on they'll try to like mitigate it later on in their life. And I think it's because the FI is like matured over time.
Yeah, so that's something I do want to say is that we're not actually stuck with the child function is not really stuck at 10 years old. As we go through midlife and get much older, it definitely matures. And whatever is the content of our neurotic zone, that we can learn how to deal with a number of those things and like take them out of that zone. And it isn't there anymore. Like new stuff is going to come in to take its place. Sorry. But not sorry, because that's also how we grow. But we can deal with this stuff. It's not like it's always there. So I would say somebody listening and hearing stuff about, say, INFJ or INTJ or whatever, and these typical things, I'm like, these are typical for like younger folks. And if you're older, you may have worked through half of these. And you're aware, you're just like, okay, I know how to manage these. And I've definitely, because this zone is has its edges, and they've like softened those edges, and that's a nice, yeah, it's a nice thing. By the way, we have a question here. Do people project their own shadow functions onto the types they're most attracted to or most disturbed by? I'll
Hey,
answer it a little bit different way, that we tend to project our shadow material, or people who handle, so whatever your child function is, if there's somebody who has that as their hero, their dominant function, then there's often like a really nice attracted connection there. It's like, oh yeah, we really feel each other, because you sort of look up to the person a little bit. Like, whatever we don't do we're like, we can sort of do it well and we appreciate it, but we're many times bad at it. And we're like, wow, this person's a hero at it. Like, we like this. And then deeper down, the stuff that's like, especially the fourth, the inferior function, is we're going to project that as being like, oh yeah, that person's really attractive. And we may not even be able to exactly say why. Or we might actually be like, no, I hate this person. If it like completely rubs us the wrong way. And so there is that shadow function stuff that comes in. And Jung said that the fundamental dynamic between people is projection. And so withdrawing that projection is work. And it is work because the projection feels good. Is like, even, I mean, it feels good to like idolize somebody, and it feels good to just despise and hate somebody. It's like and I'll go off into politics for a moment. So Trump derangement syndrome, for people who have it, it feels amazing. Like, it gives them so much energy. It feels so good. Like, it's just channeling all of this and getting them excited and all of that. And it's like, that's why people do it. Like, that's why people project, because it feels good. Even when it's bad, it's like the villain that we love to hate.
well, yeah, I think people deep down want somebody to blame. That's what I'm learning with a lot of things. Is like, instead of like fixing their own life, they just want to point at somebody to blame. So
Oh
like,
yeah, and that's when we remove the layers of the onion, that very much is underneath it all. It's like we have these deep emotional issues, and things like responsibility. And taking responsibility requires that we grow up, and that includes the child function. And so, how do we grow up? Well, we can delay growing up by putting that blame onto somebody else.
yeah, yeah,
And it's not, maybe our criticism might actually be correct about the person we're blaming, but that doesn't remove the fact that we also need to take responsibility for ourselves. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, there's nothing funnier than Karl Marx, who, poor thing, like, couldn't earn a dime to save his life. Like, he just was not work oriented in any way. And he had some good criticisms of capitalism, but that didn't excuse him from the fact that he depended entirely on other people to like feed his family.
Oof.
And that's like, okay, are you gonna like take responsibility, or are you just gonna put it onto other people?
Sound like some
And
iron.
that's, yeah, I mean, this is, it's an interesting direction to go in, and but yeah, it's part of, we could say that's neurosis also, when we adopt a project in life. And I'm going to say this too, and I've said it before, in the type community, There are some people, they're usually 20 something NT males who decide that they're going to invent their own version of type. And I'm like, that is a psychological project that you're engaged in order to grow yourself. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, like,
Wow, I didn't think
recognize
about
it
that.
for what it is.
Wow, I didn't think about
Like,
that.
you treat it as if it's a thing outside of yourself. And I'm like, personality contains the word person. So it is everything you say and do about personality is always about you and or in other people. And it's like it's a psychological project. So when we get really fixated on a cycle like a project, then that's a neurosis. Is
Obsession.
and sometimes it can be amazing. You know, a person spends their life like creating some like oh you probably heard these stories like on YouTube. This person creates like an enormous amusement park in their backyard. Like not as a business, just because. And that's a psychological project. And it's sort of a neurosis.
Yeah. When you talk about projection, I think people a lot of times are projecting themselves onto others, and I think that the reason why they do that is because the only person that they can actually like get information from a lot of times is themselves. Like so naturally you will see like if you see INTJs around, they will naturally try to project themselves onto others. Like so like they won't like try to make things too chaotic, or they'll make sure like they put on a good presentation, or like they'll make sure like so they'll naturally do things or want you to do things that they do, right? So like my girlfriend, she's just got a PhD. She's working. She works with a guy who looks just like Dario. He's a Dario clone. He's an INTJ, and he was on her like because INTJs are really hard on you about preparation because they're so afraid of failing that they're like they will drill you for preparation. And so they'll be like, go back to the drawing board. If you can't do this perfectly, go back, go back, go back. And that's the reason why they make great coaches. Or like
Mm.
some people like Joe Jackson, right? He made Michael Jackson that perfectionist because of his SC inferior. Go back, go back. It's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. What if this happened? What if that happened? What if that happened? You can't do anything about it. So like they will naturally tell you things that work for them.
Mm.
And you'll see that with a lot of people. But I just, threw an
Where
INTJ there.
am I with the I displaced my window here. Okay.
You're on ISTJ and INTJ.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So another I see somebody has a more
Yeah, good job.
which actually it doesn't match with what I was taught about Marx, but I'm assuming that the person's talking about Marx does know more than I do here. But I'm going to check on the internet and see later. Uh, because the idea was that
Yeah,
he's saying like
critic.
this guy no because he's saying like this is an interesting point, which actually is it's not that he couldn't make money, like he had a job, but he actually had a big spending problem. And I'm like, okay, I didn't actually hear that about Marx, but like, let's go investigate it and find out. Um, yeah, because I is like, okay, I didn't hear that, but
Team
let's,
parent TI critic. Like I gotta go verify this information, man.
yeah. I mean, let's find out if this is really true or not. Because the overspending is also an issue, and I would say, not to diss my stepmom, she was actually quite good at making money. In fact, she was even once she like really hurt her ankle once in a market when she slipped, and the floor was wet, and they did not have a thing that says it was wet, and she went and represented herself in court, and she won 50,000 bucks, which at that time, which was like 35 years ago, 40 years ago, was worth quite a bit of money, and she proceeded to waste all of it within just the course of a few months. And it's like, okay, that's also we might say that's like a character flaw or a
It
fault,
is. It
but
is.
when we look on and it is, and yet when we look underneath it, it's like the overspending, misspending, money mismanagement, if it's an ongoing behavior, is part of a neurosis.
Uh,
In Jung's very broad definition, it's part of a neurosis. And in this case, I think it's related to extroverted sensing. And this idea, oh, well, I can just make more money anytime, and I just want things, and things give me happiness. And what were they trying to soothe themselves with it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let's talk about INTJ and ISTJ because they have the same child. They share the same child function. Um, so what do we got? Extreme loyalty and condemned disloyalty. So they're very, and this is often a sort of half conscious, maybe even like 10% conscious. There's this sense of, and I don't mean loyalty like I gave like a loyalty pledge. I mean just like I really like this person, like I'm going to make a strong effort for them. I'm going to show up as my best self for them. Or there's somebody who comes along and we see that this person is not giving their all for somebody that is supposedly important to them, and is just like, what are you doing? Like, I think even more than loyalty and disloyalty is hypocrisy. So INTJ, ISTJ can get self-righteous or moralistic. Like when our little monstrous 10-year-old comes out, not as a temper tantrum, but as like that wagging finger,
Thomas.
is black or white judgment. Like there is nothing that annoys me more than somebody who like preaches to the poor, who like about, oh, let's help the poor and themselves, like doesn't actually bother to help anybody and is rich. I mean, like, who are you? Who are you? No, you can say I'm rich and I choose to use my money some other way, but like, don't give me this song and dance, like these fake reasons for things. Because what we're seeing is the introverted feeling child function is like, you are not acting who you claim to be. You are being fake. You're being phony. And that's just, and you imagine that tenor, and we love this, right? When little kids like point out some adult hypocrisy. I mean, the kids can do that, right? They can say things, oh my God, I remember my ENFP niece, like she stuff that would come out of her mouth when she was 5 years old. Like half the adults would be laughing hysterically, and the other half were just mortified. She was just pointing out like the obvious thing, because her introverted feeling, which is her parent function, is just like, yeah, I'm gonna point this out to you. Um,
Yeah, they get bad.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I do have. I've noticed, like, T does not. Thomas does not play around with like moral injustices. He really gets really mad about it. I've noticed that since like we've been friends forever. Like if it's some injustice act, Thomas gets like boiling about it. I don't know if you want to talk about it, Thomas, but like why you get that way.
Um, I don't want to get off topic too much, but yeah, I mean, just sometimes it's just so obvious. Like, you see, and it's not like a partisan thing, but you'll see like Donald Trump, or you'll see people from his administration just get on television every day and just tell fucking outright lies about like what's like what they're doing and what's going on. Like why are we in this war with Iran, and like, you know whatever. It just they just lie out their ass, and they don't have any shame. Like they just expect you to believe what they're saying. And I, unfortunately, like I think most people are sheep, and they just believe what they're being told. But that's, I mean, that's one of the ways it might happen, or just, just people who get online and they preach morality. Um, but they're like, maybe they preach Christianity, but they're doing it just for views. They're doing it for clicks. Like you have, like the phony Christian right, where like you have like the Erica Kirks of the world, who pretend like they reinvent themselves as like a good moral Christian person, but that's not who they actually are. They're just doing it for, they're catering to a niche, so that they're doing it for their benefit, basically. And that shit
I think
drives
this
it
is a
drives me
great
nuts.
this is a great example. Everybody, and I'm sure you can hear it yourself. Like your voice tone has changed. So your voice tone is an FI voice tone. It's like is the TEFI, but it's like, yeah, I feel strongly about this, and notice like how ridiculous this is and how wrong this is. And so that voice comes out, which is like a different part of ourselves. And that's a way we can tell like when our inner child is or like our child function is speaking. And that's because it changes. And then that has nothing to do with the content of what's said. I'm just saying like change in voice tone, it's almost like a different person is showing up. or a different part of ourselves really is what it is. And it might be completely right too. As I said, kids are geniuses at pointing out things that adults don't want to look at. And that's I subscribe to the how do you know when a politician is lying because their mouth is moving.
Hmm.
Um, and that's I've lived in too many countries and I've lived long enough to be like, oh geez. I'm just amazed. Like news, and you put quotation marks around the news because that's like, yeah, it's part of it's a business model. And you can probably hear now my voice starting to change. Uh,
Yeah, no way.
then this now we got some more like difficult stuff. Easily repress emotions and pretend that they don't care. I'm good with it. I'm gonna let that slide. No, I'm gonna put that in the box. Have a boundary. And then you push us too far. Like I've only gotten really outraged at people maybe 5 or 6 times in my entire life, but boy, did that person like will never forget that experience. Like that was just like the nice, reasonable. And I'm like, no, you're gonna get like the wrath of hell. Like pass it. Like it takes a long time to push ISTJ, and I saw this with my dad as an ISTJ. Like, yeah, we can get irritable. We can get irritable, but the irritable is like irritated, but that's different than the wrath of hell. And when that comes out, whoa, then it's like everybody's going to know about it because we can only repress those emotions for so long. I think a great example, it was a movie in the 90s. I think it was early 90s. And there's this guy, you can't really tell if he's ISTJ or INTJ. And he's fired from his aerospace job. It takes place in Southern California. And on that day, as after he's left his job and he's in a really bad mood, somebody thinks a criminal that that's a moment. They're just like, oh, look at this random dude. Like, I'm going to take advantage of him. And then there's like a path of destruction for the rest of the movie. It's like you do not bother a person on that wrong day of the week. Like, there's just moments where like, yeah, you picked me at the wrong time and you're gonna get a lot back. And it's the same, like I think that's sometimes why these types are like, you know what? I just need to data myself because if I interact with somebody, I might bite their head off. And it even has nothing to do with them. It's just me. And it's just is just gotten too much. I think the flip side of that is failing to hear others' input, notably their feelings, and then we get backlash from that. You weren't listening to me. Why didn't you notice? I have found this is very much the case when I'm working or dealing with FP types that they say something and they say it so quietly and they insert that little thing that's important to them, really important to them, between two other sentences. And like, I don't really quite catch it. Or I sort of catch it and I'm like, I don't know what to do with that information. Let's just move on to like the practical thing. And then, oh, I'm going to hear about it later.
Yeah, Effie
Like,
trickster.
yeah, why didn't you hear me? Why didn't you pay attention? And then my FI is like so hurt because I'm like, well, I meant to. I had good intentions. It's not my fault. Um, then we just feel really badly about ourselves, and at the same time, yeah, we messed up. Because FP types and FJs are very good at listening, especially FP types, assuming they want to listen to that person. If they decided that person is not worth listening to, then they don't hear anything. But otherwise, I mean, that part gets easily hurt. And then I would say, it's just as INFJ and ISFJ have this endless, like, mental problem solving process, like, oh, how can I take this like experience, how can I find a definition, how can I fit it into a model, how can I problem solve this? And for INTJ and ISTJ, it's an emotion that we're just trying to sort, and it just goes on and on and on and on. It's in the background, we're usually not saying anything, but we're like, God, I've been living with this emotion for like 5 years. Like, what do I do with it? And we try and do stuff with it, but like it just doesn't go away. And it's just like endless emotional sorting. And it's really frustrating that way because it's low level and we can push it away, but it doesn't actually go away.
Yeah. Yeah, what I've noticed with INTJs, they're more likely to blow up on you because they're more pragmatic, versus the ISTJ. They're gonna like take it a lot because they're affiliative, right? INTJ more likely to blow up on you. I do think that with FI child, they'll have a significant thing that they may wear or they may do that shows who they are, but it's in a childish way a lot of the times. Like they may have some type of trinket or something that they wear or something that they do that they think expresses them. But I think it's more seen in a childish way. You'll see it a lot with the women.
Hmm.
Like,
Oh, so that raised I would say sometimes it's an introverted intuiting thing. Like I have a totem and I'm wearing this in order to like focus my energy and my attention and my future around it. Other times it's like, oh, I'm experimenting with my identity, except I'm like 40 years old. And then that really confuses people. Like, didn't you already figure out who you are when you were 15 or 20? And then it will come out as like, especially with that inferior function is showing something that's and I've encountered this as like the INTJ who shows up in the cowboy outfit to like a science convention. And I'm like, okay, so that's your persona. But then I'm also, because I know type, I'm like, you know what, 2 years from now, you might be completely different. And I don't know if you're playing, but the play, it's childish, it's child play. And kids are perfectly okay with it. Kids have no problem with it. It goes back to why we call it the child function. Yeah.
yeah, what I'll see from INTJs is, they got a vision, and they want the FI is going to be attached to the vision, so who they will be in the future. So they're going to play out that person that they see themselves in the future now,
Mm,
and they will get their identity attached to that future version of themselves. So
mm,
they'll go ahead and start moving. Like, let's say, for instance, you'll see Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a famous INTJ. His vision for where he wanted to be was everything. So he started doing small things to identify with it. So now his ego is attached to the vision for himself, playing in movies and all this other
mm.
stuff. So you will see them do that, where they'll couple the NI and the FI together. So that vision is part of their identity or where they're going or that transformation.
Mm.
And without the transformation, they don't really have a vision. I mean, identity. So they're
Yeah.
attached to the transformation.
And that happens a lot with when either for ISTJ it's their job role or INTJ it's their creative science project, quote unquote, that becomes like their life thing. And then to attack that is to attack them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and for the ISTJ who say a soldier and somebody attacks them for being like criticizes like the military, they see that as like you're saying I'm a worthless or bad person, and you don't even know me.
Or the tradition. You're stepping on that tradition, and there
Yeah,
you can have it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
yeah, yeah. It's stuff, and it's a few other things. I think this is true. Both of these types tend to be a little bit moody or tense. The moodiness may not show to other people. Usually there's moodiness underneath, but there's the tension on the surface because they're disguising it. Like the parent function is like keeping it like under control. Like we're all good. But then there's this chronic low level depression or anger, very low level. Like I'm not talking about clinical or anything like that, not even worthy of going to a therapist, but it's there. Um, and so and that's part of their seriousness and orderly on the outside. And what's funny is that what they really want is to have joy and freedom. The ISTJ wants to be the ENFP who's just like in the carnival of life, and the INTJ wants to just have that, like, breaking free, like the joy of the moment, to live in the moment without having awareness of anything else, to just live and enjoy, like an ESFP would, their opposite type. And that's really hard to get there. So that just remains this aspiration that's out of reach.
Yeah.
And yet there's a feeling inside like, yeah, I want that. Not saying that they can't have that. Like, there's, if somebody were to ask me, like, oh, people have asked, like, oh, what, Dario, what are your top three values? And they think, because, especially if they know type, that I'm going to name something like knowledge and expertise and this and that. And I'm like, happiness and freedom. Like, those are top two of my three values: happiness and freedom.
But that might be because you're pragmatic, Dario. Like
Yeah, I
pragmatic types
mean,
like freedom.
I mean, especially if you don't have freedom, then like, what do you have? Yes. I mean, some people will say, well, you have security. But it's sometimes we get our values from our preferred functions, and sometimes we get our values from our non-preferred functions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, when I was younger, I lived in Barbados, and I started school there and socialization. And Barbados is a very ESFP society. A normal, healthy person is an ESFP. The further you get away from ESFP, the weirder you are.
That's scary.
Nobody got any
I mean, it's
finances.
great. I have very fond memories. I wouldn't live there as an adult, but I have very fond memories of it.
Ain't nobody got any finances over there.
No, but they know how to have fun. They do. They're so chill, and they know how to have fun. And I get it. Like, I don't live my life that way, but I get it.
I couldn't do it.
Um, yeah. And then one last thing here, and I think this is really sometimes tough to see, is the degree to which, and this is true for all of the types that have introverted feeling in their, in the top half of their stack, the selfishness. Like,
Mm.
and I don't
Oh
mean
yeah.
like obvious, like greedy selfishness. Is just like self-care, self-preservation. What is it that I want? What are my goals? What are my values? Every INTJ or ISTJ can tell you what are their values, what are their goals. Like, who are you? What's important to you? What motivates you? We can answer those questions, no problem. But if we're asked about other people, and this really strikes me, so it's like, I had an INTJ friend of mine who's younger, and he came over to visit me. And I could tell as a host that it had never crossed his mind to wonder what my experience of him as a host is. He's only thinking about his own experience. And he does, like, he wants to be like a good guest, but it's still coming from like his experience.
SI.
Yeah, and he's not thinking about, like, the FI is like very clear, but the FE is like not there, and taking that little bit of extra moment. Whereas my FI got to the point where I'm like, I know it's important to ask in myself what is of value to the other person. And that's because I value harmony and I want people to have a good experience. I want to be a good person. How can I be a good person? Part of that is paying attention to the needs and values of others. And it's not, I'm not really doing FE. Like, my FI is saying I want to be a good person.
Hmm.
But in order to do that, I need to do something that looks like extroverted feeling.
Yeah, I think for INTJs or IST, I think ISTJs have a. I always say there's always one type that has an easier thing with their like trickster or inferior. Like the ISTJ generally has it easier because they're affiliative, so they absorb all these social norms. While the
Mm,
INTJ is pragmatic and doesn't give a damn about social norms and stuff like that. Like they think they're stupid, you know. So they generally tend to have more oblivious to a lot of things, or oblivious to also their other people's needs, and then also with my vision and my values, both of them together make a very selfish person.
mm,
Make a very because they know exactly where they're going in life and they know what they value. So anything that don't mesh into those two, good luck. Okay, good luck
mm.
with your INTJ when it comes to that. You better make sure
Yeah.
it's something they like or it's something along the lines of their vision. and you
But
got all ears.
the ISTJ is interdependent. They're more interdependent. The INTJ is more independent minded, minded.
Yeah, yeah. The benefit is that for INTJ, the introverted intuiting gives this meta perspective, so that even though, for example, we don't maybe pay that much attention to our feelings, when somebody stops and asks us, "How do you feel?" we can go internally and sort of be like, "Oh, this is what it is," and "Oh, right, there's a process to sort through this, and I'm going to sort through my emotions and like locate it and name it." In my experience, ISTJs have more of a difficult time naming what it is that they feel because their introverted sensing doesn't take them to this meta perspective. They're not going to be like, oh, here's a process you can try out to figure out your emotions. Like they need to be, they need to create, they need some help, some hand holding, like by a therapist or a teacher or whatever, a parent, to show them a process that becomes a habit for them to do.
I get what you're saying.
INTJs don't need to make something a habit in order to do it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying because NI goes deep and it penetrates
Yeah,
anything, so that they could go inside and just penetrate down until they figure out what's actually going on.
yeah.
While the ISTJ can't do that because they don't have NI. Yeah,
So shall we, given our time, and we can always do two
yeah, we
sessions.
can always do two.
Yeah, yeah. So, which two types do we want to do
Up
next?
to you, Thomas. What do you think?
Um, I kind of want to hit up ENTP and ESTP.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, perfect. Let's do it. They're the very first ones on the list here that I put in the slides. And no, no, that's ENFP. Here we go. Um, yeah, this is actually the one I worked on first
That's
of all
funny.
of
Look
them.
at the wild boy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's even more like there's also these. I asked ChatGPT to make like whole panoramas, and I just have like the guy on the left is like, yeah, yeah, I'm the cool one.
You know, you
Uh,
know, you know, Dario. For me, I've noticed that uh, people with similar functions can look outwardly similar. So like a ESTP and a ENTP can all be like crazy junkies, and then some people will like misdiagnose that as this person's an SE Dom, when actually like their actual function that they're using to do that is actually NE. And you'll see the same thing with like INTJs and ISTJs. Like INTJs are fixated on one thing and ISTJs are fixated on one thing. But you actually got to unpack why they're fixated on that. And I think a lot of people actually do that and they mistype a lot of people. Because
yeah,
NE could look like, because they're just chasing experiences, they're just exploring those possibilities, that it can look like SE. And the problem that I see is like SE usually has like limits to it when NE has absolutely no limits. So you would
mm,
just see just complete debauchery. While like the ESTP, like they have a farm that they stay inside of. There's a little farm. Because they're concrete. But the any doms, there's nothing. Nothing's
yeah.
off limit.
It's a little bit what John Beebe has talked about, that the first and the eighth functions. So the very top of the stack and the very bottom of the stack, we actually do use some of that. The very last function in the stack is like a bridge to get what it is that we want. So like an ENTP will do some ESTP stuff because that's just what needed to like get this possibility going. The difference is they're not going to stay doing that. They're just going to immediately jump from that to the next thing. Whereas the ESTP is actually going to like more keep repeating what it is that they enjoy. And the ESTP is like, yeah, I don't need to try this other stuff. Like, calm down, like, stay in one place. It's the same, like, when I was much younger, like, in my early 20s, I did some, like, I worked at some companies and stuff like that. I could really fake being an ISTJ for like 1 week.
I can't
And
do it.
then the expectation is that I just keep repeating what I'm doing. And I'm like, I can't do that anymore. Like, I'm going to go insane.
Busy
But
work
I
drives me
could
insane.
really fake being an ISTJ for like a week. And I think an ESTP can like, even ESTP, by the way, can get philosophical at times and talk about some stuff, and you'd be like, ah, they're showing a little bit of ENTP there. I mean, they might be. And of course, they often both have entrepreneurial spirit
Hmm.
and like things in common. But you absolutely need to dig beneath the surface a little bit. I also think they tend to have slightly different body language, and of course their opposite functions are different. You know, the ENTP, when you really get them in the spot where they're not feeling so good about themselves, they're going to say things like, I feel unsafe, I feel insecure, like in life. ESTP is never going to say that. ESTP is like, my life is meaningless. Like, why am I here? Like, what can I do that has meaning? And so, like, when you really dig down, of course, you're going to figure out how they're different. But they do share, they have the same child function and the same parent function. So they share a lot of stuff in common, especially when they're younger. Probably the number one thing is this: they have this experience that other people cause their emotional state, which is really tough for a type like INTJ or INFP to understand. Because we're like, if I'm angry, like it's my responsibility that I'm angry. Like maybe I want
Mm.
you to do something about what's happened, but like my emotion itself is like my emotion. No, 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 no. No, the ESTP and ENTP are like whether they feel inspired, supported, angered, like ridiculed, like whatever it is, all that emotion is like they're very involved with the social emotions, like envy and jealousy. Like ESTP and ENTP, oh, they can get envious or jealous.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and
especially
yeah.
ENTP. I think ENTP probably worse.
ENTP, a lot of times they're like, yeah, I'm being smart, I'm being a smart ass, and I'm like, you're just insecure right now. And that's their third function, and they're like, what? No. But it is there. I think they also struggle with, on the one hand, both of the types. They like to be independent, they like to be pragmatic, and yet at the same time, there's a certain neediness. And you might think, oh, I've never seen an ESTP be needy. And I'm like, I've dated three ESTPs. Once you reach a certain point in the relationship where they feel free for their extroverted feeling to come out, then the neediness shows. And they will literally state what it is that they feel insecure about. And that's really nice because otherwise, this like tough, I can do anything types, like they have their soft side too. And I think that's actually a great way to appeal to them if you do it in a way that's like socially smooth, which our three types are we're not good at doing, the three of us. But you bring in somebody who's good at it, like an ENFJ, be like, yeah, smooth. Like let me address you in like address your 10-year-old neediness in a nice way. Um, Caught up in endless office politics and relationship drama.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they
Oh
just
yeah.
don't understand. I know several ENTPs in particular. They're like, why is it every company I go to, they don't last more than a couple of years because all this drama develops. Like people are envious of me. They're gossiping behind my back. Like all of this. I'm like, I've worked in a lot of workplaces. Like this never really happened to me. And if it has,
Mm.
like, yeah, I'm actually oblivious to it, so it doesn't affect me.
Like
I
yeah.
know once an ESFJ tried to undercut me, and I'm I literally don't even care. Like, there's no you can't suck me into this. I just literally don't care. But they care. Like, and the politics, yeah, the drama, the relationship drama. Said that she said. They're
Poaching.
doing this behind my back. You're giving me an attitude. Why aren't you being respectful? This person was so mean. They're so nice. Why are
I
you
just
disrespecting me?
I just find I find in general it seems to me like FE child like they really like talking about other people a lot.
Hmm.
Like in their like that's like one of their hobbies is like let's talk about other people. Which I kind of I find it kind of weird.
Yeah. And yet remember, because it is the child function, um, it is not like they're not actually scarred by it. Like you said, it's a hobby. to talk about it. It's not like it's actually important to them deeply. Most of the time, it's not. It's just like for fun.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what I noticed with them is the woman. Like my brother, he's an ENTP, and ever since we were kids, he's always had women problems where he's always going like poaching other people's women. Like ever since we were fucking kids, and I'm just like, why does he do this? You know, and it makes, I don't know what it is with ENTPs, but they love poaching other people's married women, girlfriends, all of that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the simple fact that they notice somebody else wants this and they don't know what they want. So then like somebody else wants this, so it must be great. I don't know what it is, but they have a problem with trying to poach other people's women. They're successful at it, man. They're very successful at it. Um, Me, I just think I just see too much drama forecasted in that. You know, there's drama forecasted in that. You know, there's way too much drama, and then they
Hey,
wonder why somebody wants to kill them or hurt them or do all this stuff to them, and it's like bro, you're getting yourself involved in it, and it's like they have no foresight of this. You know, because either the ESTP is just enjoying the moment, or the ENTP just loves the thought of the possibility. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
But they could be something else, man. Something
That
else.
takes me back. I was in college. I remember I was talking with my uncle, who's ESTP, and he said, "Oh, is there any girls you're interested in at the moment?" And I said, "Well, there is this one, but she's dating this other guy at the moment." And he's like, "That can change." As in, like, you can go and change that situation. And I already knew type at that point, and I'm like, yeah, you don't know me. Like, I wouldn't know what to do, and I would just create enemies anyway.
Well, I just
Like, I'll
that's
just
one.
let like if fallout's gonna happen with that couple, like let this fallout happen, and I'm just gonna be patiently over here. Not saying he's not wrong, because as an ESTP, when he was in college, he could probably do that. He'd be just like, yeah, I'm just gonna poach this potential date from
Yeah, but you
somebody else.
got problems. Like guys really love their women, and they will kill you. They will hurt you. Like it's not like a game. Like they think it's like a game or something. It's not a game. Like I've seen like macho men like do some of the craziest stuff because like they women did something. You know, like I just don't want
Hmm.
to invite that into my life. Like I just
Yeah.
don't. Like I just not. But
Well,
they seem to do it a lot.
well, if you're ESTP, you have no forethought. You don't have any awareness of consequences. Like I know this ESTP. He, this girl was in a relationship, and it's like, they started doing stuff, and then like, oh, I went and bought a new gun because her boyfriend's coming after me. Like, yeah, I mean, you like what, you weren't aware that this was a very probable outcome if you were, hooking up with this girl who's in a relationship. Are you surprised? Like, I mean, like, but that's must be nice to live in a world where you don't, the consequences are like not real
Yeah.
Yeah. No, no,
until
mind
they
you,
are,
as yeah, no, and as they get older, the ESTP, whether they're 45 or 65 or 30 or whatever, they're gonna have that introverted, intuiting moment of insight where they're like, oh, maybe that's not such a good idea. Like they get this picture, or they're just like, oh, the meaning of life is something else. And then they pursue that kind of stuff instead. But it takes growth. Otherwise, yeah, it's just going to be, how did I end up in this situation? Like, they just have no idea how they ended up here. Um, yeah, it's,
And also with the FE child or whatever, they can be very charismatic. Very charismatic people.
oh, yeah.
They know how to make people feel good. But the thing that I've noticed with all child functions, it's almost like it's a mask. Like they can only do it for so long before they're like zapped out of it. You know, it's like boom, you know,
Yes.
and the child is overloaded and burnt out, and like you get a nasty ESTP or a nasty ENTP. You know, but
but
they'll put on this like mirage that they really care, and they care about socials and everybody feeling good, and then like when they're burned out or they're not having that day, it's offline. It is
Mm.
completely offline, and you're about to hear some nasty stuff. But that's what I've noticed with them, especially my
Yeah.
brother.
I hope viewers are enjoying this. We're talking smack about all of the types. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, no,
And this,
Dari, they're used to us. They're used to me and Thomas
yeah.
delivering smack on every type. You know, we can
No,
do it to
and this
everybody.
to me is really important because so much type material is all about the positive stuff. I mean, even Isabel Myers was mostly positive, although she always included some negatives. But one of the best ways actually to profile people is to be aware of what are the negatives. And I don't just mean like, oh, the inferior function, let's make it very safe and sanitized. No, it's like let's get real with it. And these are things that once you see these, you spend some time with somebody, you see this behavior come out. You're like, okay, I
Oh,
didn't know this person's type before. I wasn't completely sure, but now that we've seen this neurotic material come out, like we understand what type they are. And that's it really like looking at the negative stuff can be really helpful. But as you said, often that's not on display in the beginning. And that's and how long can people keep it up? It's very true. Yeah.
yeah. I think also with the neurotic side of the ENTP is they wear so many different masks based on the people that they're around, because they're constantly adjusting to the social norms of the people around them or what other people value, that they don't have anything for themselves. So like they're constantly like wearing masks, wearing masks, wearing masks, wearing masks, wearing masks. Like my brother, he like whenever he's around me, he's his actual true self. But when he goes away from me, he's not his true self. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? That like that's not even who the fuck you are, you know? Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, and he's got like all these different masks, like, you know, and I'm just like, bro, that's not even you. Like you're a nerd. You're a nerd. You know, like you're a fucking nerd. Like, and I'm just like, because they go from group to group to group to group, so they wear mask to mask to mask to mask. I'm like, you better make sure you take that mask off before you start talking to me, you know. But he enjoys that he can actually be himself, but he does like kind of, because he's doing that so much, he loses himself. Like
Well, and that's the trick. It's not that trying on those different masks or adjusting to people is wrong. It's not. It's like it's if it's doing disservice to you or to the relationships, then yes, like step back and like maybe be more of yourself. Like, but healthy play is then that's actually their strength. You know, the ENTP or ESTP can walk into a room and make magic happen, and part of that is just like turning on the charm and this and that, and that's great. I mean, as long as it's done in like a spirit of help, like a win-win situation, then that's great. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. So another thing here I think is very typical with ESTP and ENTP is the self-aggrandizement. Um, I mean, we see this with our president. I'm the best. Nobody is better than me. I'm the smartest. Yeah, I know more than anybody about this. I'm like, dude, like a lot of that doesn't even make any sense. Um, but an ENTP, the smartest person in the room, the craftiest person in the room. And then on the other hand, just keep in mind that underneath that, they're also being self-critical. So that the child function is really inflated. It's like, I'm the best. See me. I want to be the center of attention. Adore me. And yet underneath there's a lot of that their parent function, which is self-critical, is actually like self-critical. And so just how they appear on the surface doesn't mean that they really believe all of that. That's just like it's a
nothing.
show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the one thing about, if people are struggling to know if they're an ENTP or an INTP. INTPs never, they will always stick to what they believe is the truest. ENTPs want to entertain possibilities. They want to get more perspectives, right? So they're going to, if you say the sky blue, they're going to take the argument the sky fucking red just to see what will emerge from that. Okay, and that's the total difference. Why an INTP is going to stick to the TI all the time. Okay,
Mhm.
you can maybe argue with them and they'll look at your perspective, but they're going to stick to what they believe is the truth and not the other side. They're not going to give
Mhm.
you, the other side and stuff like that.
That's very true. That the INTP may even go into sort of lecture mode of explaining why something is true, like the principles of something or the dynamics, the details. Whereas ENTP really is more in it to as like an intellectual game, and we're playing tennis with these ideas, and let's see if I can beat you
Yeah.
at this game of tennis. Yeah, mental tennis. Yes. And by the way, it is frustrating for both of these types because they do have this parent function which is very good at tactics and strategy. The ENTP more strategy, the ESTP more tactics. And when they get in social situations or they get in like a job environment or whatever, they are wondering, why can't the other people play tennis with me? Why can't they play doubles tennis? And that's something that they really enjoy, is the equivalent of doubles tennis, whatever the environment is. And then they really want a partner who actually is up to snuff, who can play with them. And that's some of the reason why they can sort of just be like, you know what, forget it. You obviously can't do it, so like let me just run this. And then that comes off as being like, egotistical, or I'm the smartest person in the room or whatever, because they're just like, why couldn't you play tennis with me? And it's, to some extent it's true with all extroverts, but in particular those two types. Yeah. Some other things. I found this is one of those for or against things. So it's hyper focus on societal values and policy issues, but they can be for or against those. Like you don't know what they're going to be. I do believe there are a number of ENTPs who are pundits who just put on a whole like persona to just be devil's advocate and ruffle like thousands of feathers, and of course, to stick with that metaphor, to feather their own nest financially. And they're using the social values and the policy issues as like the material that they're going to talk about in order to be a success and to make money, and they have fun with like riling people up in the process. I think for ESTPs, it's not that, I mean, they do care about, also they're going to use like societal values and policy issues and stuff like that, but they're just, they always keep like a certain distance, so they know when they're sitting there advocating for something, that there's part of them that's just like, I'm just saying whatever I need to say for people to accept this. And there's like a cynicism to it that is, I'm just going to feed this person whatever they need to hear. And then you find out in the back room that they're like, making a whole bunch of money on the side and whatever it is. And that they could easily, and this has happened, there are ENTPs and ESTPs who have a sudden change of political heart, and
Yep.
they go all the way to the opposite end of the political spectrum. And you're like, what happened? And I'm like, well, for one, they were never anchored in their values in the first place. And so they're just going to go, oh, there's a better group of people and a better opportunity over here. And so I'm going to go over here. And of course, that also creates a little bit of mistrust. And I remember one ENTP in particular. I don't know him that well, but we met a few, like hung out a few times, like same social circle, sort of. And I didn't know how to tell him that no matter what he was talking about, it sounded like he was lying. And I'm
They're the
just like,
biggest liars on the planet. They're the
yeah,
biggest
and
fucking
it's
liars.
a delivery issue. I'm like, they can't all be lies.
Nah, they're liars.
So I'm just like, your stories and like the things you're saying are really like, okay, but I'm like, I can't believe, like, I literally can't believe you.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know how much he's aware that other people also experience him that way.
What I'll say is, because my brother's in ENTP, they have a way of telling a story like it's from a fucking movie, and the shit that they
Yes.
will do doesn't even sound like it's true or even in the realm of possibility. But they will be 100% conviction in what they're saying, and I'm like, well, I wasn't there, and this shit don't sound like it's true. So I'm most likely gonna discount it. But I've heard so many stories from my brother as a kid. Like it's crazy, man. It's almost like they're in a different like universe. It's what is the term called? Is it
Main character syndrome.
main character syndrome? That's
Yeah.
what they got. Like, whew.
Yeah, yeah. I would say one way to tell the two types apart is that ESTP is very attentive to all of the micro clues, the sensing clues of body language and voice tone. Like they literally see where your eyes are looking and when your pupils dilate or when they contract. When there's this tension in a particular shoulder, somebody walks into the room. I mean, ESFPs have described literally they walk into a room and they know who the top dog is in the room without it being pointed out to them. ENTP, their strength is more like I can go to any country, any culture in the world, and I'm cool with it. They just like slip in and out of places, like, oh yeah, because culture is something to them that's just sort of like made up and malleable, and you can just play with it, and they're very comfortable with that. And then and I have seen boy, at ENTP. I remember one he so there was it was a birthday party, and the person whose birthday it was an ESFJ. And the ENTP comes in and manages to insult the ESFJ in the first one sentence without intending to, just because of the way he said something. Whereas ESTP is usually a little bit smoother in what they're doing. But the ESTP might actually do something vengeful physically later. Whereas ENTP is more like, no, I'm not going to expend the energy to get revenge on somebody, especially physically. Like that's just like a bridge too far. ESTP might actually hit somebody. ENTP less likely. Might still happen, but less likely.
With the ENTP, it all depends on where they're at. Because if they're at a point where they have been like uncomfortable for so long, they are probably one of the most violent ones. And like I said again, ESTPs take it to a certain realm, and with ENTPs there is no realm because NE has no realm. So there's no realm of what they won't do to you. While the ESTP, you probably gonna have to fight. If you can beat them up, you're probably good. ENTP, they're using anything they can to assault you, do something to you. You've never seen it before. No one's ever seen it before, so you can't prepare for it. So you gotta be careful with those sly dogs, man. You gotta be careful with
Yeah,
them.
no, the very worst kind of military general or strategist to face up against
It's
as an
ENTP.
opponent is an ENTP.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely, because they will think of things that the most experienced person, regardless of type, ENTJ, whatever, will not have thought of ever.
yeah.
Like ENTP as an opponent, you do not want ENTP as an opponent. ESTP is easier because you
Easy.
can just leave their context.
It's easy. They're easy because they're so, like I said, they're inside of the farm. So long as you plan for everything that's inside of the farm, you got them every time. ENTP, they give INTJs hell because it's something you've never seen before. You can't account for it. It's like, what was that one guy? God, he's a famous general. He was like beating Rome pretty bad. God, I can't remember his name.
Was it Hannibal?
Hannibal. He's
Yeah.
got elephants running around. He's crossing mountains. They've never seen nothing like that before in their life. So he's giving them complete hell and he's happy because they like to create chaos. So like it's just winning.
Hmm.
But they ended up getting him later on because what they ended up doing was they started attacking his home, and then when they started attacking his home, his people told him to come back home, and then he had to fight actually fair.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's
If it's any consolation, I do remember I have two friends of mine. One is he's an ENTP and she's an INTJ. And we'd like have game days. We used to have them quite a bit before COVID. And the INTJ would always win because she and both of them know type, but she knows type very well, and she knows that he prepares, like his introverted thinking is preparing different like strategic options in his mind.
Hmm.
And so she uses her introverted intuiting to like go even one level above that, to like hit him in the one blind spot he didn't see coming. And I can't do that to him, but she can. And I don't know what it is exactly the way her introverted intuiting works as an INTJ, but she is just always able to find that weak spot that
Give him
he
a
has.
possibility. Give him a possibility he can't say no to. You give him something because they're so attached to a new possibility that where like if you give them an option that's old and you give them an option that's new and they can do something, they're most likely to take it. Like they're
Mm.
any just has to take it. You know, so maybe that's what it is.
There can be some of that too. Yes.
Maybe.
So here's the last one for these two types. Over analyzing emotions and interpersonal issues, but not actually feeling anything about them. Like the ENTP, especially if they know type, is going to sit down and be like, okay, I'm having difficulty with my girlfriend here. So I'm going to chart out like our type functions and like where there's matches and mismatches, and I'm going to figure out like the strategy of the things I need to say and whatever. And at no point do they actually feel the emotion that they need to feel in order to fix the relationship. Because his girlfriend, who maybe is, say, like an INFJ, is like waiting for the emotional connection, not for a cognitive solution. And no matter how correct the cognitive solution is, like the emotion was just, and the intent, like, oh, I want to fix the relationship. Like, that's honest. Like, the NTP does want to fix the relationship, but not actually allowing himself to go to that introverted feeling place, because there's some, then there's some seventh function stuff way deep down that would be like, okay, and then by feeling that, allow for a genuine connection to take place. And ESTP, similarly, ESTP will like, oh, we got in a fight, let me go buy an expensive gift. And I'm like, dude, that's very nice that you're buying an expensive gift, and I know you mean well, but that is not going to solve the problem.
ESTPs drive me nuts with that crap because they think there's always some kind of way to smooth something over. Like regardless of how bad they fuck up, it's like
Hmm.
oh I could just buy my way out of this my fuck up.
Oh yeah, all the SP types. There is this. It's what I think of as Bart Simpson. So Bart Simpson, who probably is ESTP, Bart Simpson knows he's done something wrong, and he knows that he's been caught. So he's gonna stand there and he's going to be a good little boy and tell Marge, his mom, that he's sorry and that he won't do it again. And he'll put
Yeah.
on whatever act he needs to in order to convince her that he's sorry. And then he'll just go on doing whatever it is that he's going to do.
Hmm.
And it's all just an act, and all of the SP types do it. They do it slightly different ways. With SFPs, it's emotional blackmail. So they're going to actually put on the feeling of the emotion. It's like singing a song for them. But they're just talking to you instead, and they're going to inject whatever emotion is needed to be there, and they're feeling it, and like, I feel so badly and I'm your friend, and or whatever it is. And I'm being like, I know I was bad and I screwed up, like I'll do better next time. But then they don't do better next time, and then they
Yeah.
just go back to what they were doing
Hmm.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. With these two, I do think I've talked about it with a couple of my buddies who's their ENTPs, and the difference between ENTP is because of the NE, they explore like all of these feelings, and so they for some reason they can't get a grasp of the feelings because they're FI trickster, but they explore all of these feelings. So you'll see a lot of like ENTPs depressed. A lot of times, a lot of them will be depressed, or they'll suffer with some mental illness. I hate to say it, but I'm just it's Thomas laugh. But
Well, I'm
Thomas,
thinking
I'm not
about
lying.
certain
Like the
famous
amount of times
people.
we ran into like an ENTP with like some type of mental illness that they just can't get under control, that kind of derails their life, is absurd. But you will see like they can't get it together, and I think because the ESTP is concrete, they have a better time staying grounded with it.
Hmm.
As in with the NE, it's just floating all over, like literally all over at all times. While SE is kind of like depending on the environment and what you got.
Yeah, yeah. It's and it is interesting when those two types, ENTP, ESTP, and actually the introverted versions too. So all of the TP types end up in an ongoing emotional state like depression, and they have no idea how to handle it. Like they have no idea. Like what do you do to actually feel better inside? Not feel better temporarily because you went to see a friend and the friend patted you on the back and like gave you some supportive words and you did feel better for a few minutes or days or whatever. But like how do we actually address that feeling inside? And that's really tough. And then I mean I have heard stories, ENTP depressed for many years, didn't know how to get out of it because that's like way, way down in their shadow. Like, how do we deal with their emotions? And I remember this from an INTP who was also depressed. His friend was telling me, and I met this INTP for decades. And and this INTP had like some very strong opinions about like therapy and personality and like psychology and whatever. And I'm thinking to myself like, dude, like obviously your models aren't very good because if they were good models, you wouldn't still be depressed. Because that's like the like INTJ like extroverted thinking, introverted sensing like, oh, my emotions are mine. I should do something about them. Like what's actually going to work in order to like fix it.
What's gonna work?
Yeah, and the poor INTP is like, but the models are true cognitively, and I'm like, but you're still miserable after literally decades. Like, dude, you're almost 70 years old and you're still depressed. Like, maybe it's your model
Yeah,
that's
because
not good, but it's the hero, and then we're telling the hero that it's wrong.
dude, I want to hear
And
that.
that's like telling INTJ your vision of the future was wrong. Or telling the ESTP that, like, dude, you're out in outer space, like, not in reality. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? Like, it's so hard to convince the hero that they might be over the top or they might be wrong.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You can't really do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny there. Uh, but I think Dar, we're probably going to have to break it up in two because I know you got to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so here's I just wanted to address this so it's a couple of great comments. Some of them were about Batman and the Joker and so on, but here the Bart, I'm an expert at phony apologies. Yeah, so that
This
sort of goes back, yeah, to
To
that
the
extroverted
ENTP.
feeling there.
classic
MBTI, well, that's
ESTP.
right. Yeah, ESTP. Yeah. MBTI isn't real. That's right. It's a mental model. It's a map. It is not the territory. It is not actual people. There are many things that type does not address. Emotions actually are one of them. It doesn't address them directly, amongst many, many other things. So I absolutely agree. The map that I have out in front of me, the words that I've written on the slide, those are just words. Like those are not reality. Like those are just words. I totally get that. It's a pretty good model though. Like it's got a lot going for it as a tool set. It's pretty good. And yeah, Enneagram I think
Okay.
is nice in working with defenses and emotions, which is why therapists like it.
Mhm.
So just to sum up some things, having only talked about six types, and in the future we can talk about more. One is I've defined the neurosis is this neurotic zone that's between the ego and the unconscious. And it tends to be convoluted, it's overgrown, it's specific to the person, it resists exact definitions, it results from imbalance, and mostly, especially for younger adults, So like before midlife, it's a lot of third function stuff and how that third function is interacting with all of the other functions. The second function, the first one, the seventh one, like whatever. It varies individually. The solution for it also is going to be individual. And even when we find a solution, like we figure out, like this happens. Like there are ESTPs and ENTPs who go from fake apologies to real ones. Like at some point they figure it out and they're like, okay, this is I'm a better citizen of humanity when I actually come from a place that's like very honest. And it's like that connects with their TI, like you said with INTPs. You mean like I just like I'm going to be honest about it and be diplomatic about being honest. But that doesn't mean the neurotic zone goes away. It's just replaced with new stuff and new challenges. And people are like, "Oh my God, this is terrible. Are we always doomed to be neurotic?" And I'm like, if we didn't have the neurotic zone, we would be robots. Like not just like functional. I mean, because it's more than dysfunction. Like neurotic is what makes us human. Everything that we've talked about here is all of the human stuff that ends up in like literature and films and like torments us. Well, it's all of the human stuff. And that's what makes us interesting in like sometimes a miserable way, but it makes us interesting. So I would say, folks, like don't despair. You can't do anything about it anyway. I mean, you can grow out of your individual like issues, but you'll get new ones. Yeah. And that's for the being like everybody else. I love Blade Runner 2049. Wonderful movie. Absolutely love that. I love the biblical roots that it has in it as well. Great performances. Uh, yeah, love seeing Harrison Ford again coming back. Like that was fantastic.
He's old.
Yeah, you know what? Every year we're getting closer to that world.
Every one of us. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
every one of us.
You,
The
you,
number
you
of
know,
neos that
you,
people buy, like influencers that end up on Instagram,
you know who gets
not
the
to
most
mention
scared about
your
that, Dario?
Android.
Dario, you know
Yeah,
who gets the most scared about mortality, right?
I
INTJs.
mean, we're going to discuss this. We're going to discuss it because on the one hand, it's true. We got to accept like everything returns to dust in the flow of time, but like some things last longer than others. And that's yeah. What's the best way to balance your functions? I would suggest the Magic Diamond by yours truly. It will go through all of the functions and it gives specific examples of how you balance. Let's say your type, you asked, I don't know what your type is, but let's say you're INFP. It's going to give specific examples for FI and NE, your two preferred functions, how to integrate them with all of your other functions. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
and that's it.
when it comes to integrating function, guys, I think especially if you're talking about like inferior and child, what you'll just notice is the child function tends to grow very quickly, while the inferior you're gonna fight with it. You just got to chip away at it. You know, just small things over the course of time will allow you to be better with it, and you do need to give your hero function a break because if you don't, other functions might sit in the driver's seat when the hero is too tired, okay, and that could cause you a lot of problems. Like I had an
Mhm.
ISTJ coworker. She said that randomly she just came to Florida randomly, right? Because she was so much in the SI. Then NE jumps in the driver's seat, and then make NE make some crazy ass decision, and now she's in Florida, you know. And now she's living here, you know. And I was like, yo, you got to figure out a way to kind of like balance that out, you know. Do something to like give your NE a chance because if it doesn't, once it sits in the driver's seat, it's gonna make a crash course, like you know. So like that's what I think a lot of people need to realize about type. You know, if you go too hard on your hero function, it will get tired just like anybody else, and it doesn't win all battles. You know, it's very
Mhm.
good, it's very strong, but it doesn't win all battles, and when it loses. Oh man.
Very good advice. Very good advice. Thomas, do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
All right, Dario, it's been an absolute pleasure. I guess we'll get together and we'll finish them up. It's. I think it's fun to tell the stories because I think the people connect the stories to what we're saying, and it allows them to type better. Me and Thomas really realized that from the tier list because we do a lot of tier lists in the rankings and the stories and stuff. People, even my girlfriend, she's like, she watched the tier list and she's like, yeah, I'm able to type people better based off the stories that you guys give us because they're easy to pick out. Like, oh, you got this one guy who's always lying. Okay, I know what type he could possibly be, because a lot of times, figuring out if somebody's informating or if they're pragmatic, if they're systematic, if they're outcome focused, it can be a lot more challenging, and you can make a mistake. But when you see like, okay, these observed, behaviors over time, you're like, okay, this sounds like what Mercer and Dario or Thomas were talking about.
Mm.
So I think it's very helpful for a lot of people. So, so don't feel bad
Nice.
about going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I see we got more questions and comments here, and I've taken screenshots of those, and those are things that can be addressed in the future too. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm interested, like, which function should we appeal to when trying to overcome an interpersonal difficulty? And that's interesting question.
I didn't even see that question.
Damn, Dario.
Yeah, it was like in dealing with an INFJ, should you appeal to their child function or their sixth function or their critic? Like, what should you do?
I
It
I think
depends.
the child you have to make the child comfortable. I think is
No,
Yeah.
definitely for
no.
INTJs. I'd say in general, if you make the if you agitate the child, then you're screwed. But if you get the child on your side, I think you're they're like putty in your hands.
Nah, nah. I think
No,
if you're dealing with any type, you want to make sure you don't get your head cut off by the critic because that's the first one that's on you. That is the first one that's on you. If you're dealing with an INTJ, you need to make sure that they do not perceive you as somebody stupid, because once they perceive you as stupid, you're out of there. Okay, even with INFJ, like you need to make sure they perceive you as somebody who has morals, some integrity, and all of that. Because if not, critic coming out, boom, you're out of here. So it's like a strike out of
Mm.
here. So you really want to watch those critics because and it's so like they're so over the top with the critics that like you need to please them. Like I was talking to an INTJ nurse, right? And I beat her to a critic. I said, "Man, these people are so stupid." She said, "I know," and then she was so happy that I said, that these people were stupid because she was thinking it. And me jumping on her side with it is like, oh, this person like says the same thing that I am. So it's like people with the critic, man, because you don't want the critic after you. Because if the critic's after you, you got a hard time getting in there.
Mm.
But
For next time.
yeah, we'll,
Yeah,
we'll say
we'll
that for next time.
discuss. Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All
Thanks for
right,
joining.
Dario.
all right,
Yeah.
thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, guys.
Thanks.